Thank you for joining me. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. My name is Trevor Ranges. I am the product manager for XO Cambodia. And today I'm going to be talking about family-friendly Cambodia. At the end of my presentation, you'll be able to ask questions. So please save those for the end. If there's some reason you can't hear me, perhaps, or anything right now, you might want to say that. But otherwise, we'll go ahead and you can type questions to me at the end and I'll do my best to answer them. Okay, just so you know, a little layout of the land. If you have not been to Cambodia or haven't been here for a while, there's 3 international airports, Phnom Penh, Siem Reap, and Sihanoukville. Just recently, they've started flying from Bangkok, both airports, Dan Muang and Suvarnabhumi, to Sihanoukville Airport. So you can fly internationally into all 3 of these cities, and all 3 of them are connected in both directions by air in just under an hour. So flying in and out of Cambodia is getting easier, and getting around Cambodia is getting easier by air. Also, by ground transportation, these are all distances from Phnom Penh. Just to give you a layout of the country at large, from Phnom Penh up to Krache is about 5 hours, Siem Reap is about 5 hours, Battambang is about 5 hours, Koh Kong and Sihanoukville. Distances between those other places like Siem Reap to Battambang or Sihanoukville to Kampot and Kep, maybe only 2.5 hours. So with a combination of the flights and the relatively short road distance times relative to the roads that there were here in the past, it's quite easy to get around. And I know that that's probably one of the challenges of traveling with families, is you don't want to have the kids in the car for too long. Even 5 hours might seem like a lot. Fortunately, when we design some of these longer drives, we do have attractions to stop at along the way, and we can certainly take children into consideration when modifying some programs for you to handle families who might not really want to do long drives. Okay, one of the reasons why I think Cambodia is really family friendly is because it's a family friendly country. It's a friendly country. Cambodian people are incredibly nice and friendly. Children will frequently wave and say hello to you. Locals will be incredibly friendly with your children. Their children will probably be friendly with your children. It's just a very warm and welcoming place. And I think that's something that makes it nice when families travel here, is that the kids will get to interact with kids just because there's kids everywhere, and the Cambodian people and their families in the parks or here by the riverside in Phnom Penh. Lots of genuine interaction that's very friendly. So for today's presentation, I'm covering like 3 major topics. The first one is child-friendly experiences, which I've broken up into Angkor temples, animal experiences, cultural immersion and social responsibility, and culinary experiences. Then we'll talk about some family-friendly multi-day programs. There's actually more than 4. These are multi-day programs that use a lot of the experiences that we'll talk about in the beginning. And then I'll wrap up talking about some of the destinations and some of our favorite family-friendly hotels. Okay, so I was in Siem Reap last year, and a friend of mine was going to come to the temples with me, and then he asked if he could bring his kids. And that was the first time I realized like how much different traveling is with kids. And there's things like the Angkor temples where, everybody reacts differently. Some people are just amazed and they could spend all day going through every single temple, and some people get templed out because it's a lot of walking around and it's hundreds of years of history. And I imagine that to some degree the kids could fall into that latter category unless you do something with them to make it more interactive, So that's why we have things like the Angkor Thom photography scavenger hunt, which is really fun, not just for kids, but certainly for kids. The Angkor Zipline, which is great because the Angkor Archaeological Park is some of the only area with old growth forest. So it's really beautiful natural environment there. And the zipline gets you into that. Vespa Adventures, just a fun way to explore the temples and the surrounding countryside. Also bicycles. This part of Cambodia is really flat, so it's really easy riding. The balloon, which is a little fun activity. And then we have a day trip out of Siem Reap that has a couple of attractions that kids would probably enjoy. So the first here is the Angkor Thom scavenger hunt. You can see from the photo in the center and the bottom there's little maps you get. It's within the walled city of Angkor Thom, which has a number of temples and other structures that are very photogenic. And this is a good way to keep kids busy and have them looking for things and making it very interactive. And on this note, we've also started working on some Instagram experiences. I have like a hashtag Angkorgram program that I'm putting together now, just because that can also make it more fun for kids. Teenagers probably would find that a little bit more fun than the younger kids might enjoy the scavenger hunt. But people are definitely into taking photographs, and there's some definitely Instagrammable moments at the Angkor temples. So I think my Angkor Instagram day is going to be a really cool experience. Zipline, as I mentioned, and you can see from that photo there, there's a lot of big trees in the park. So this is a great way to get out into nature within the Angkor Archaeological Park. Certainly geared towards kids. They have kids safety equipment. They have half day and full day programs. So if your kids are really into it, or they just want a taste of it, it's a pretty cool experience within the Angkor Archaeological Park. Vespa Adventures, they do some great programs both in the park and in the surrounding countryside. As you can see there, you don't drive your own Vespa. The guests sit on the back. There's kid-size helmets. They drive very carefully. That photo from the top there is on their like hidden Angkor program, which follows a lot of dirt trails, back roads. So it's away from the traffic and away from the crowds. And again, rather than sitting in a car or a van, this allows you to really kind of be a part of the atmosphere, which can make it a bit more fun for families. The Angkor Balloon is a tethered hot air balloon near Angkor Wat. It's just a short ride, but it's a great view. And I think it's something great for everybody, but kids may enjoy it because the balloon is huge, and the big canopy kind of thing you stand in is pretty nice, and you get a great view of the Angkor Temple. Going up to Banteay Srel, there's a number of different ways that we can create day trips out of this up to Banteay Srel. Banteay Srel is a really beautiful, almost miniature scale temple with really ornate carvings, which I think could attract children more than some of the big ones, because I don't know, it's almost like a miniature dollhouse version of a temple. But also because there's really cool attractions nearby, one of which you can see from that baby gibbon is the Angkor Center for Conservation of Biodiversity. They have a great collection of animals there. I'm actually going to talk about that in the animal experiences section. But that's part of a day trip here. That can also go to a artisanal silk farm, the Banteay Srel Butterfly Center, which is really cool if kids are into flowers or insects. We can stitch together a pretty good day trip up to Banteay Srel that has a nature hike to Cabal Spien, for example, but the ACCB I think is great, and we'll talk about that more in a second. Quad bike adventures, again, it depends on the family. All of these different family-friendly experiences are going to appeal more to some families than to others, and more to some younger children and some to older children. This is a really cool experience because it's just outside Siem Reap. They have these beautiful rice fields, and the terrain is not very difficult or dangerous. It's relatively safe, but it's also kind of fun because you can get a little bit of mud. So I think that's kind of a fun family thing to do. Otherwise, bicycles are great. As I mentioned earlier, it's very flat around this part of Cambodia, Siem Reap and the Angkor temples. XO Adventure operates all of our bike tours, and they've just gotten a whole bunch of new bikes. And you can see from this photo here on the bottom, they have a variety of different kid sizes, and they have like baby carriers on the back of mom and dad bikes if the whole family wants to go. It's really great because you don't have to ride all the way from town to the temples. You can actually have the bikes brought out there, drive out in a van, start the bike ride inside of the park. There's areas where there's less traffic, so it can be very safe. And if the kids or mom or dad get tired, there's always a support van, and you can jump in an aircon and drive a little ways instead of ride the bikes. But there's some great dirt trails in the park. It's really fun to explore by bike. And not just in Angkor, we have a number of biking experiences that I'll talk about a bit more in the multi-day program. Other ways to get around Angkor, the electric Jeep is not only sustainable, it's really cute, and it's also a fun way to explore the park. There's also Army-style Jeeps, and the Army-style Jeeps are pretty cool as well. Otherwise, there's the Remolk, which is the Cambodian tuk-tuk. I like the Jeep, I like the tuk-tuk, I like the kind of open-air experience of traveling through the park. But then you throw in like bicycles and electric bikes and the Vespas, and I think it's just a good way to mix it up, because you know, you don't want your kids getting bored if they have something new and different, even if it's just a transportation option, that can, you know, make that day a little bit more exciting or a little bit more fun, just because you're doing it in a Jeep, or you're doing it on electric bicycles, or you're doing it in a remolque, which they've probably never been in before. Okay, for animal experiences, this is by no means comprehensive. These are just some of my favorites, and trying to squeeze all this into an hour presentation has been a little tricky, but I think I got some good stuff here for you. I have an individual slide for each one, so I'll just pass by this one. The first one is the hero rat at Apopo. This is something relatively new to Cambodia. Cambodia has a really bad problem with landmines and unexploded ordnance, and they've done an amazing job in recent years of removing leftover landmines from the war, which are not near the tourist areas, just so you know. But in Siem Reap, they have the center here. They've trained these giant African rats to find unexploded ordnance and landmines, and they're even better at it than dogs are. And they're huge. These rats are huge, but they're really cute. So for kids that like animals, or like mouse, rats, hamsters, something like that, these are giant. And you can see from this photo here at the bottom, at the visitor center, they do a little demonstration how the rats can find it. And while you're not allowed to pet the rats, you can pose for a photo with the handler and with the rat, and it's really cool to watch them do their thing. You wouldn't think this much of a tourist attraction, but it's nice because it's a really great success story thus far, and it's kind of a lighter way to experience a tragic problem, but with a hopeful solution. That's cute as well. Otherwise, the Angkor Center for Conservation of Biodiversity, which I mentioned up near Banteay Srel Temple, I've always been a huge fan of this place. I think it's a great place for visitors to come. It's a sanctuary largely for animals that had been captured and held in captivity, and then brought here to either live out their lives somewhere in a peaceful, natural kind of environment, or more often even reintroduced back into the wild if the Wildlife Alliance and the ACCB decide that that's the best thing for the animals. But they have otters, they have gibbons, they have tortoises. There was a pangolin there one time. I don't know if you know what a pangolin is, but there's some really interesting animals in Cambodia. And this is a really beautiful setting, and it's a really good organization. So kids that are into animals would definitely dig this place. Otherwise, just south of Phnom Penh is like a sister property. The Phnom Tamao Wildlife Rescue Center is very similar to the ACCB in that they also help rescue wild animals. When I did my webinar in Ratanakiri a couple of months ago, it was Cambodia's up and coming destinations. We actually called the Wildlife Alliance because someone was keeping a baby otter in a cage. And the Wildlife Alliance went out there and rescued the otter, and they brought it here to Phnom Tamao until they felt it was comfortable to re-release it into Koh Kong in the forest there. This is, again, a wonderful place for you to experience some larger animals as well, like bears, tigers, elephants. And again, you can't touch them, obviously. And it's not a zoo. These are not zoos. These are places to rescue wild animals, and they're really cool. It's a great experience. And this is a day trip from Phnom Penh. Also stops by Tonle Bati, which is an Angkor era temple. There's a large pond there. It's a nice place to stop for lunch. Okay, horseback riding. I love this photo. This really does capture what it's like. Obviously, you get to do some countryside around the rice fields, that type of thing, because Siem Reap has a lot of that nature that's very accessible. But this temple, Wat Phare, which is near the horseback riding center, I've never seen any other tourists here. So it's kind of cool to arrive here by horseback and have a temple that's all to yourself. And of course, some people love horses, so it's great that there is the opportunity for people to do horseback riding in and around Siem Reap. For more wildlife, Eastern Cambodia is really the best region to travel to. They recently sealed the road between Mondulkiri and Ratanakiri provinces, which are on the easternmost portion of Cambodia along the Vietnamese border. This is where they have the Elephant Valley Project, which again is a sanctuary for formerly captive elephants that are in semi-retirement, if you will. There's also freshwater dolphins in Krache, which is also on the Eastern Cambodia Explorer program. There's actually a number of different wildlife experiences here and there throughout the East that can be added to programs, but the Eastern Cambodia Explorer, I think, is amazing. I hope more people take the opportunity to see that part of Cambodia while it's still relatively undeveloped. We also have another program called Temples, Tribes, and Wildlife that starts in Siem Reap with the Angkor temples and then runs the Eastern Cambodia program backwards. So it still visits the dolphins and the elephants and the other great attractions in Eastern Cambodia, but also combines it with the temples and finishing in Phnom Penh. Cultural, entertainment, and social responsibility. These are very accessible programs and experiences in Cambodia simply because there's lots of organizations that over the decades have helped Cambodian society. They provide opportunities to disadvantaged Cambodian youth. And now there's opportunities that are very family friendly as well. So you wouldn't necessarily think that some social responsibility or cultural entertainment is something that kids are looking out for. But more and more nowadays, young people are much more socially and environmentally aware. And I think parents would probably enjoy integrating that into their holiday, which is very easy to do here in Cambodia. Phare Circus in Siem Reap is one of the top attractions after the Angkor temples. This is an arts program that started in Battambang after the war and now has a professionally trained circus. They don't only do circus in Battambang, and we'll get to that in a second, but it's certainly a great attraction for kids and adults in Siem Reap. One thing you should know is that they do a number of different programs. Recently, they were having 5 different shows in a week. So it isn't a bad idea to find out, what shows are playing on which nights to schedule the performance that might be best for the kids' age. Some of the performers, they wrote their own scripts. So it's not just a circus performance. Sometimes it tells like a morality tale or something like that, so it can be very interesting for children of all ages. Otherwise, in Battambang, which is in the western part of Cambodia, just a few hours from Siem Reap, that's where the Phare school is. And as an art school, it doesn't just do circus. They also have traditional dance, break dance, traditional music, modern music. They have art workshops. They even have a digital animation school for young Cambodian kids. So this circus experience is very different because these are young people, these are students learning their trade. So it's kind of charming to see kids who are doing something that they're very passionate about. But in addition to seeing a show, you can simply visit the campus, you can get a tour of the campus, and you can perform in a circus workshop or a music workshop or a combination of different workshops depending on whether you want to do a half day or a full day. But that's a great thing to do. Bamboo Stage is another great organization in Siem Reap. They do shadow puppets, and I think that's something all kids can relate to because we've all done as kids little hand shadow puppets with a flashlight on the wall, so they totally understand the concept. But they have a few other shows, maybe for some older kids, the Angkor Temples Decoded, which uses kind of paper mache models and computer graphics, and they get a member from the audience to come and paint on that paper, as you can see at the top there. They have a number of different shows that are educational and informative and fun. They also do a shadow puppet workshop. So again, if your kids are into the arts or they like doing puppets, this is a really cool opportunity as well. Storytelling, these guys are currently on a break because their storyteller here has gone to Europe for a while, but they're planning to be back in the fall. I've enjoyed this storytelling performance just because I think storytelling is a great way to reach across cultures. It's very entertaining. The guy's a great storyteller. It's accompanied by music. You hear folklore and religious tales and history of Cambodia. And a little bit later, when we talk about dining, we have a small temple dinner where we can also have this storytelling troupe perform, which just makes a really, really nice family dinner, let's call it. Cambodian Living Arts. In Phnom Penh, they have a dance workshop, and you can see here that this is on the grounds of the National Museum in Phnom Penh. And in the late afternoon, you can do a Cambodian dancing class, which is fun. It's challenging. It's very interesting because you learn about some of the meanings of the hand signals and facial expressions and how their theater works. Or you can simply just go to a performance later in the evening. They also do Cambodian drumming, I believe, at the Bamboo Stage in Siem Reap. So there's opportunities to do workshops with them and or see performances from Cambodian Living Arts, both in Phnom Penh and Siem Reap. Again, getting back to sustainability, this is a really great program that's been around for a few years in Siem Reap. It's called Rehash Trash. I think most of the items that you can see here are woven out of upcycled plastic bags. So again, I think kids today are much more environmentally conscious. This organization provides a livelihood for disadvantaged women. There's many good reasons to do this, in addition to the fact that it's fun and you can bring home a souvenir that you made, or you can buy some souvenirs that your kids will enjoy using because they'll show off how responsible they are. Very colorful too. So there's a bunch of different workshops like this. Artisans d'Angkor is a little bit more serious towards the arts, but you can take, let's say, a stone or wood carving class and take home a souvenir as well. Otherwise, just kids who are into the arts have an opportunity to visit a variety of different styles of Cambodian handicrafts and see and learn how they're made. Now, for culinary experiences, the child-friendly street food discovery, obviously for children, that's why I created it and called it the child-friendly street food discovery. But even at the bottom, there are cooking classes. There's TV shows now where children compete to cook the best thing with Gordon Ramsay or whatever, like environmental and sustainable awareness. Kids seem to be growing up a lot faster these days and taking cooking classes and learning to cook at a young age. So I think that's really cool. And the cooking class experiences we'll talk about are great for the whole family to do. So I think it's something fun. Again, interactive, I think, is the key to keeping kids entertained. So my child-friendly street food discovery. Last year, I revamped the street food program for adults that kind of was a little like a blend of, let's say, safer and then edgier and then safer and then edgier food, just because, eating street food for people who are unaccustomed to it can be a bit of a challenge. You can see this is like a scorpion salad here. I think that would be a challenge for anyone. That's in a lovely restaurant called Bugs Cafe. That's incredibly hygienic, and the food's very good. And then there's the opportunity to eat street food on the street. But with the child-friendly version, what I did is I started it a little bit earlier at 5 p.m. So that it ends a little bit earlier. And then we took out a stop at the Sambai Rice Whiskey Workshop, which is probably not the best place to keep your kids happy. So it's a little bit shorter, starts a little bit earlier. It's a great fun night out with the kids. Otherwise, this could have almost gone in the social responsibility program. This is my Dining for a Cause food tour. One thing I really like about it, again, is that, rather than having to have your kids sit at the table for several hours, here you're going to go to one restaurant for an appetizer and a drink, and a representative of the social enterprise that runs the restaurant will explain to you how the restaurant benefits impoverished youth in the area. And oftentimes it's one of the kids, like here at the Project Y, which is the last stop for frozen yogurt. Those are all students who are reaping the benefits of the revenue generated from this frozen yogurt store. And so one of those students will sit down and explain to you how the program works and how many people it's helped. And then, like I said, you're jumping around from restaurant to restaurant to restaurant, only staying at each one for maybe 30 or 40 minutes. And therefore your kids won't necessarily get bored. And the fact that they're learning that this is doing something to help other children in Cambodia, I think it's a great family product. This one maybe not quite as family, I don't know. This one, I think we do temple dinners for large groups of people that cost tens of thousands of dollars, but it's such a magical experience. So there's a temple here. You can see the photo at the top. This is before our recent dinner that we did. It's a smaller temple. It's in Siem Reap town. It's really quiet. It's very atmospheric and beautiful. And then we can have a variety of different storytelling or performances to go along with a 5-course meal. So this is obviously for some of your more luxury travelers. But if you want to have a special family dinner, this is definitely going to be a great place to do it. And then, as I mentioned, the cooking classes. We have a few different ones. Here's just a variety of the ones I like. Taste Kampot Pepper. That's down in Kampot. It's at a pepper plantation, and you also get to ride around on the buffalo cart in the back here when you do a tour of the farm. The cooking classes are in open air spaces. The ingredients are very colorful. If you're doing one in Siem Reap, Culinary Cambodia, or Phnom Penh Culinary Delights, you get to go to a local wet market to do your shopping beforehand. And I think people are always amazed the first time they go into a local wet market here in Southeast Asia. It's definitely something that'll be memorable and Instagrammable for the kids, at least. They'll want to take some pretty crazy pictures of the kinds of things you can buy at a wet market here in Cambodia. And then do a fun cooking class and then eat the food that you cooked. I think it's a good family experience. Okay, a few other leftover ones that didn't quite fit into any of those categories. One of them is Kids City. It's a kind of amusement park for kids here in Phnom Penh. This is a good rainy day option if you happen to be coming to Cambodia in, let's say, September, which is the rainiest month. It might not be a bad idea to keep a half day free. You might want to do something like this with the kids. It seems kind of funny that you would come to Cambodia to go ice skating, but there are a bunch of different things for different aged kids. And again, as a rainy day option, laser tag, go-karting, good stuff. Otherwise, when we start talking about the multi-day programs, there's a lot of soft adventure that includes some bicycle riding. But there's also opportunities for stand-up paddleboarding and kayaking. You can do this both on the coast, SIHANOUKVILLE and the islands, but also on the Kampot River and the Mekong River. There's an American woman who does stand-up paddleboard camping expeditions in Krache, so you can stand-up paddleboard with Irrawaddy dolphins. That's a pretty cool experience. Otherwise, kayaking is a bit more accessible. You can kayak on the Tonle Sap Lake. You can kayak on numerous rivers where there are hotels located in remote areas. There's flooded forests. There's the dolphins. It's a great family thing to do, just because, again, you have these double kayaks and the kids don't have to paddle so hard, and dad can paddle them around. Okay, so for multi-day programs, now, obviously we can custom tailor anything to whatever your families are interested in. These are just some that have family in the name because they have a lot of the experiences that I mentioned above. Oftentimes, there's a lot of different options. Like when we make these programs, the 14-day, 13-day, 12-day, Not every day is blocked off like you're doing something all day every day. Lots of times in these programs, there'll be 2 or 3 optional activities for the afternoon. So you could either just take the afternoon off, or you could do any one of those different things. So it's really easy for us to tailor make these for you. I put these in order from the longest to the shortest, and we'll just kind of go through some of the highlights of them. So family fun in Cambodia is 14 days. The features of this are Angkor temples, there's a floating village visit, there's kayaking, floating tents, visiting waterfalls, beaches, and then options along the way are the Phare circus, some horse riding, zip line, quad bikes, Up Paddleboarding dance shows, and this kind of visits all over Cambodia. This is a 14-day trip that hits most of the major highlight areas, including Angkor and the beaches, and has lots of family experiences that you can kind of pick and choose from. So this is a really good one for people coming for a longer stay. This one's similar. It has slightly different attractions. You can see it has Free the Bears at Phnom Tamao, which is south of Phnom Penh. It goes up to Battambang and you get to ride the bamboo train, which is really cool. And then it has similar options along the way, including that children's playground in Phnom Penh, which again is a good option for rainy days. Otherwise, horse riding, zip line, the circus, lots of nature, culture kind of focus on this program. The family multi-sport extravaganza, again, XO Adventure operates our biking trips. This is actually a adventure program. It's mostly around Siem Reap and north central Cambodia, but has some cool stuff like camping. There's some great camping and glamping around Cambodia now, and that gives you access to a lot of really beautiful nature that can be explored by bicycle or kayaking. Or even like some of them have the army style jeeps that I mentioned at Angkor in some of the more remote areas beyond the town. This is the Eastern Cambodia Explorer program I mentioned earlier. Goes up to Mondulkiri where the Elephant Valley project is. Elephant Valley is great. They have some bungalows out there, or they're cabins that you can stay in. There's also opportunities for doing some volunteer work with them, which would be cool for some families. When I went out there last year, I did a volunteer day, and we had a couple of families that were doing the volunteer work with us, and everybody had a great time. That's also where Cambodia's largest waterfall is. These are where the minority tribal communities are located. There's a giant volcanic lake. There's the river dolphins. This is some really beautiful country that more people are starting to go to, but it's still off the beaten path. Fortunately, there's these great new roads, and there are a fair variety of accommodation options now. Again, not for every family, but like if I had kids, I'd be taking them up here for sure. Family and Friends Incredible Cambodia Adventure. Might be hard to remember or some of these names. They all sound all a little bit similar, don't they? Well, they're all available on the website. And after we wrap this up, if you email me, I can send you a PowerPoint version of this slideshow. And of course, you can always contact me to help you custom make something for you. Soft Adventure, 7 days, 6 nights. This is just in and around Siem Reap and Banteay Srel. Banteay Srel is a massive ancient city near the Thai border, northwest of Siem Reap, that sees very few visitors. And it's an amazing place. Now, because of the new roads, you can actually drive out to Banteay Srel on a day trip, which is really cool. And they have an award-winning community-based tourism program up there. Otherwise, getting out on the floating villages, going to the circus, I don't know, this is all great stuff for families. I'm so glad we have all these programs. And the Angkor Family Holiday is just mostly focused on the Angkor temples, obviously. Features at the bottom there, the balloon, the scavenger hunt, the classics, zip line, horseback riding. Again, we really want to make the temples child friendly. Even when we did our tour guide training last year, which we have coming up again in a week or so, we talked with the guides about, like trying to make sure, if you have happy kids, you're going to have happy parents, right? So we brainstorm ways that the guides could keep the kids entertained. And we even talked about doing a mini scavenger hunt where, I suggested to the guides to take a couple of pictures of their favorite carvings at certain temples. And then when you're going to the temple, show the kids like, hey, did you know this is my favorite carving? Like, let's see if you can find it, or, who can find it first. Something to try and make it more interactive for the kids, to make it more interesting for them. And that's why I like the scavenger hunt. And that's why I think the Instagram experiences are going to be great as well. But just trying to make the program more interactive and more interesting for kids. And even, shortening it up sometimes. I know that like spending all day out at the park can be tiring. So I started developing more programs that, go out in the morning for 2 or 3 hours and then come back to town for maybe 4 hours in the middle of the day to stay out of the heat, to enjoy the swimming pool at your hotel. There's lots of great hotels in Siem Reap. And then go back to the park again in the evening for sunset or something like that. Just to kind of break it up a little bit so your kids don't get cranky. Okay, just a review of the destinations a little bit and some family-friendly hotels. Phnom Penh, I like to call it the city for people who don't like big cities. Just for reference, you can see down here the Phnom Tamao Animal Rescue Center. It's on the way to Kampot and Kep. So for families going down to the coast to spend a few days down there, it's a nice place to stop off along the way. Otherwise, it's a great day trip from Phnom Penh. Now, when selecting, these aren't all the best family-friendly hotels in Phnom Penh. We actually put together a list of all of our most family-friendly hotels based on the rooms. You want to have like a suite or connecting rooms, or be able to have extra bed that there's room in for it. So we actually have a list that I can share with you that lists all of our most family-friendly. These I picked for a couple of different reasons. The Frangipani Royal Palace, the Amanjaya, and the Palace Gate Hotel. Here's the Royal Palace. Here's the Palace Gate Hotel. Here's the National Museum. The Frangipani is like right around here, and Amanjaya is right here. And now there's a really nice waterfront promenade right along here that's really good for walking. And then this road here is blocked off, so there's no cars allowed. So if you stay at the Palace Gate, it's really easy to like walk with your kids into one of these parks. There's a lot of park space. There's a nice little kids playground around here. So I like for families staying down here by the riverfront, just because it's easy to walk to areas and you don't have to worry about a lot of traffic and stuff like that. Otherwise, like the Raffles and the Sofitel, the Raffles is here and the Sofitel is down here somewhere. They're more like within their own little like area. So there's no traffic right in front of the hotel. So, it's a bit safer in that regard, that like when you need to get a tuk-tuk or a car or something to get in and out of your hotel, it's a little bit of an oasis and then you're off. But otherwise, these are all great properties. Villa Lanka, I like for a combination of it's a little quiet down there. The street isn't so busy. It's near this park. And then the Sofitel, which I was at recently, has a great playground for kids. So this isn't comprehensive, but here's a good selection for Phnom Penh. For Siem Reap, just so you know, you're talking about a slightly different situation, because the major attraction obviously is the Angkor temples, which is only about 10-15 minutes drive depending on where you're going. This is Angkor Wat right there. It's Angkor Thom right here. Or you're going to go down to the lake, or you're going to do something like horseback riding or something in the countryside. So hotel location is a slightly different ball game in Siem Reap, depending on what you're looking for. Here's a list of some of the hotels that are from our list of the best rooms for families, if you will. As I said, location is going to be a different situation. There's some that are right in the center of town, which is great for people who want to be in the center of town, and there's some outside of town. So it's kind of based on like the style of room. Now, if you're looking for other things like private pools, the Heritage Suites is great for that. If you're looking for just a great pool, or a place that has a kids pool, or a place that has a nice kids club, again, feel free to ask us. We have that information available to you. Otherwise, just because these areas didn't come up so much before, so you know where they are relative to Phnom Penh. Here's Kep and Kampot, which, you know, these roads are under a bit of construction now. But let's say it's 5 hours from Phnom Penh to Sihanoukville, maybe 4.5 down here to Kampot and Kep. Kirirom National Park, and then Koh Kong is out this way. As I said, now you can fly from Siem Reap to Sihanoukville, so that's actually a faster way to get to Kampot or Kep if you're in Siem Reap. Otherwise, these roads are really improving. And aside from downtown Sihanoukville, which is undergoing some massive development, Kampot is increasingly charming. Kep is still a wonderful place. And the islands off of the coast of Cambodia are still gorgeous. I mean, I'm from Hawaii, so I have a high standard for what I consider to be a beautiful beach, and Cambodia's still got some really beautiful beaches. The new developments here are the Six Senses and the Alila Villas, which are great because they're very near to the airport. You can just land, drive down here, jump on a boat, boom, you're there. Whereas to go to Koh Rong, you have to land, drive all the way over the hill, and then it's a bit longer of a boat ride. But it is worth it because there's some pretty beautiful places out there. For island hotels and coastal hotels, again, this list was largely picked based on the types of rooms that are suitable for families. If you want to know like which ones have the best amenities and activities for kids, they're all going to have different options. But I was recently at the Alila Villas. They have a beautiful beach. One of the things that's really nice about coastal Cambodia, it's very flat, packed sand, and is generally very shallow off the coast. So even like these waves here that you see, those are probably some of the biggest waves you'll see most of the time in Cambodia. It's very shallow, and it's very calm, and they have very nice white sand and golden sand beach that's almost like powdered sugar. It's so soft. So it's definitely very kid friendly. It might be hard to get the sand off your kid sometimes because that stuff's really sticky because it's so fine. But the coast is great for kids for sure, just because it is calm and the water is really beautiful. Some other family friendly properties around the Rajaburi Villas is in Krache, the Four Rivers Floating Lodge in Koh Kong. You can see a photo of it there. That was before it was unfortunately destroyed after a dam broke last year. They currently have 3 tents already completed, and by the end of the rainy season, they should be mostly, if not all, operational. And that's a pretty cool place because that's kind of pretty luxury glampy. They already have actually they have a family tent that's not on the water that's already set up. So if families wanted to go now, they could. But this is great because it's really easy to do like kayaking and go to a waterfall and get out into nature. Otherwise, someone brought up a question in my morning webinar about glamping and camping. And for some reason, I didn't do an entire slide on glamping and camping here, which I definitely could have, because I do have a presentation that is about all of the camping and glamping kind of experiences that are available in Cambodia now. And there's about 12 that I am comfortable recommending, either at the super luxury end, like the Shintamani Wild, or there's a new Tamao resort on Koh Rong Island that's beach glamping. That's really cool. So families I know do enjoy camping together. There's definitely some good opportunities that don't require a whole lot of roughing it, unless that's what you're looking for. And then our adventure team has some good wilderness camping available as well. Okay, so that's my family-friendly Cambodia webinar presentation. If you have any questions, there's in the control panel, there's a little box there that has questions, and you can go ahead and type those to me. Amy asked a question about the Four Rivers Floating Lodge, if it's safe. And I'm wondering if you're asking, is it safe because like a dam could break again, and I think that would be fairly unlikely. There was a lot of heavy rains. There were some issues with the management of the dam, I believe. I guess obviously anything could happen, right? You never know. If your guests would be worried about going to the Four Rivers because of like flooding conditions or something, I would just say not to go there during the monsoon season. If you sent people into that part of Cambodia in December, January, February, March, where it barely rains at all, I think there would be no danger whatsoever. Yeah, email address. Thanks. Good question. There you go. That's me. There's my contact information, trevor@xotravel.com. You can also Skype me at Aloha Trev. This will be available on the Agent Hub so that other agents at your organization can listen to it or watch it or download the PowerPoint version of it and watch it later. I also have a link here to all of the presentations that I've made over the year or so that I've been at XO, from glamping to family friendly. This started out as just a presentation that I put together for an agent that was asking me about family products. So yeah, I can share my Cambodia presentations with you so that you can learn more about the Eastern Cambodia program or other wildlife experiences. Or if you have other clients that are not families, for luxury travelers or honeymooners. I did my last webinar was on honeymoon travel. I'm not sure what my next one's going to be, and I'm not sure when it's going to be, but I'm more than happy to share whatever I have with you, and take any emails, Skype calls, or whatever to help you as much as I can. Thanks again for listening, and I look forward to working with you in the near future.